Hello and welcome to the Afri Dominion Show. My name is Freeman Singirankabo and thank you so very much for joining our program today. Those of you joining us live, especially if you're joining us live from the social media such as Facebook and YouTube, welcome. We are so glad that you've taken some time out of your busy schedule and joining us today. Be sure to share our program and also subscribe to both our channel and follow. You may ask why, so that we may have an opportunity to have a real-time exchange with you via Zoom or these various chats that you may find us in. We want to inform or let you know that during this program, we speak frankly with you. We speak boldly and we speak with no apologies to the issues most relevant and close to our hearts. And we do all of this in the spirit of truth, love, and trust. And these are the benchmarks by which we hope and we would love for you to measure both the integrity and the content or the validity of the content that we share with you. And with that in mind, I also would like so very much that you send us some feedbacks. Let us know what you like and also be sure to support us. You can do that going straight to our website, which is www.afridominion.com, www.afridominion.com. And when you get there, be sure also to subscribe to our group. Make sure that you come in and you interact or you meet with some of our group members so that you may have an opportunity to see or to be a part of various activities that we have here at our Free Dominion show or even at our Free Dominion page, whichever that you find more interesting or more helpful. So for those of you, before we jump right in it, I always start by just giving you a short brief description about what a Free Dominion is. So a Free Dominion, it's an idea that inspires, advocates, and encourages a complete Africa dominion by its sons, daughters, and African descendants, all in the interest of the African people first and foremost, and then the rest of the world afterwards. This complete Afri Dominion is it is one country at a time, I should say. So we're absolutely advocating for a complete leadership takeover of Africa. The entire continent Africa, one country at a time, by its sons, daughters, and its African descendants. So in this show, you can expect conversation that drive or that leans towards those themes and topics. Why did we bring these topics, or why did we come up with the show? Or why are we presenting you this show? It is because it's about time that we can actually speak our issues, our ways, in our very best interest primarily. That's the spirit by which we actually come out to you day after day, day after day. We want to be able to drive our own issue. We want to be able to advocate our own issue directly and primarily. We also want to inspire brothers and sisters all over the world, especially those with the African roots, to take a stand and to stand boldly and to stand with no apologies and represent themselves, represent their families, represent their communities, even their countries. And in our program here at Afri Dominion, we have many themes that we discuss. However, since we have 5 weekdays or regular business days, we have decided to actually give you one theme per day. So Mondays all the way through Fridays, we bring to you one theme, a theme at a time. So on Monday, we talk about the eradication of refugees and persons and stateless persons. Refugees, or African refugees in particular, it's such an epidemic among Africans. But also we continue to have many people and families who are becoming stateless as a result of extreme bad situation or even a fatal situation that they may find themselves in. And they usually take it upon themselves to either flee the country or completely go dark, so that they may be able to actually live another day. On Tuesdays, we talk about the Constitution, law and policy review, and implementation. Why do we care about the Constitution's laws and policies? Again, Africa as a continent, or African countries, they have some of the most modern written constitutions on piece of papers. But these constitutions are never followed to the letter, the same way they have been subscribed or ascribed to those piece of papers. So we want to have an opportunity to review these constitutions and get rid of the things that do not work, encourage the things that are working, and also advocate for leadership change, leadership that actually follows and obeys the constitutions of these countries. This is something that we very much, we care deeply about it, and we want to ensure that the rest of our brothers and sisters can have an opportunity to a better life without having to leave Africa, without having to leave their countries and so forth. We do the same thing with the laws and policies as well. Again, it is unfortunate that we actually openly talk about this, but that's the reality. Most of these African countries do not respect the laws. So how can you have a solid, stable country if nobody obeys the laws, or most people do not care about the laws? Same thing with policies. We want to be able to review these policies, see and scrutinize to ensure that these policies actually are looking after the very best interest of African people primarily. Again, it is unfortunate because most of these policies do not have the best interest of African people primarily. African people come last out of many of these policies, and we want to make sure that we change that. On Wednesdays, it's our testimony day. We usually tell our testimonies and we write our own history, our own way, again with no apologies. We've come to accept for so long that for every change that we incur or that we actually see in respective countries or your respective countries, the new government or the new leadership gets rid of the old history, and it rewrites a new history that actually caters to its narrative. If you go back in history, in many countries, history, those African country histories have been tainted. So we do not have an original history. We have a cherry-picked history in various countries. So we have decided to say enough is enough with this whole cherry-picked history. If I can only tell a portion of my history, and at the same time I completely erase your own history just because you and I have a beef, or we happen to have something we do not agree, and just because I prefer to advance my own agenda, I get rid of your history. To the extent I make sure that it completely gets taken out of the history in your whole entire country, even the continent. Such is a very serious issue that we're dealing with today, because if you go throughout Africa, most of these countries do not have a written history. Most of the history gets destroyed by the new governments as they take over, especially if it's a government that was a result of a coup d'etat, or if it's some sort of a regime change, a brutal regime change. Because most of the time people die. And out of the desire of keeping this government established, or keeping them from not being investigated for those crimes, they would normally make sure that the previous history, the previous established history, is destroyed. And we do not want to keep on doing that. We want to have a full story of who we are as a people, as African people, who you are in your respective countries, who you are as as in your own village, in your families. Preserve that history so we can be able to know where we are coming from as well as where we are headed. So on Thursday, we talk about the spirit of dominion. Again, we choose these words carefully because when we talk about dominion, we actually and intentionally mean those words. A complete taking over of the leadership by us, primarily, sons, daughters, African descendants, all in the interest of African people, primarily. We want to be able to take the entire leadership, government, control, resources, management, all of that. Oversee day-to-day operation, all of that, all in the interest of our brothers and sisters in our families, communities, and respective countries. On Fridays, we talk about current events, what's happening in various African countries. It is not necessarily the hottest news. It could also be a topic that's rarely spoken of. But we actually want our families, our communities, and the rest of the African nations to be aware of them. So those are the themes we have from Monday through Fridays. Our broadcast time, it's 12 Eastern Standard Time to 1:30 Washington, D.C. time, basically. So all of you following us live, we are all the time here live at 12 to 1:30. And you can feel free to join us. We have Zoom, good to go, on standby, that you can actually come in and join a conversation as it happens. We also have social media. We have, I do believe, Facebook. We also have YouTube. We also take calls from WhatsApp, from Telegram, and also via Signal. Thank you for reminding me. So if you are on social media, feel free. If you using any one of these instant messages platforms, also do join us, because we really want to make sure that we interact with one another. We make it easy for each and every one of you to join the conversation as it happens, but also make sure that you advocate, you encourage, and you inspire the rest of our brothers and sisters to the lifestyle, to the life we intend, to the leadership we want and we wish to have in our various countries. Are we together? So, going back to our day, today is Wednesday, as I have explained to you. Before I get into it, let me give a shout out to the Queen Esperance, Queen. Much love to you. And all of you guys joining us live from social media. Let me actually check in right quick before we get into it. And I am also extending a huge shout out to our brothers and sisters in East Africa. You tell us that you've been following the program and you're enjoying it. And not just the East Africans. It so happened that that's where I'm from. So I generally would start off with my brothers and sisters close by, but also extending my shout out to you, our Southern Africa families, Northern Africa families, West African families. All of you guys, a huge shout out to you all. Come in and tell us your testimony, give us your testimony, as well as writing your own history, your own way, on behalf of your families, communities, and countries. And we expect nothing less than that, and we apologize to no one that we are doing this. So, getting into our Wednesdays, last week I was giving you my personal testimony. Same way all of you can give out your personal testimonies. And I remember that where I left off, I had just slightly entered our war times, our change, our change in our lives in Rwanda. For those of you who do not know, I come from Rwanda, and as troublesome as the country has been, each and every one of us, we have had a share of our own testimonies, the stories that we have gone through, the experiences that we have gone through. And we started writing our own history the same way we're encouraging each and every one of you guys to write your own history. Why? Because the leadership in Rwanda right now has been twisting the history. The same thing when we're saying they have been writing a history based on their own lenses and for their own time frame. For instance, in most of the in most of the literatures that you will find out here, it seems that Rwandan civilization started in 1990. The history that's being spoken of, it usually starts in 1990. Why? Why specifically 1990? That's when the rebels, the government that exists today in Rwanda, they invaded Rwanda on October 1st, 1990. And the history that they usually share starts from October 1st, 1990, when they actually started the warfare. And of course, when we push it all the way to 1994, when they actually took power on July 20th, on July 20th, it was the month of April 20th, 1994. Now you have a more vivid history. You have more vivid things that has taken place. Many books that have been written, movies, documentaries, they usually talk about from 1994 to the present day today. It is very rare for you to find a history before that. And that history is usually extremely diluted or even told in the lenses of what the government of Rwanda wants you to know. So because of that, us who were just children back in those days, today we are men and women. Some of us married, children, grandchildren, etc. And when we actually now take a look at the history that's being shared, most of it is super flawed. However, we are also to blame because we've been silent for so many years, mostly because of background situation. Some people have been hunted, or they've been on a hunt or being hunted for 20 plus years. We're talking about 2 close to 3 decades. Your family or loved one being hunted day in and day out by the government of Rwanda today. And so we've decided that now we want to actually have an opportunity to share our own history the way we know it. And the history we share on Wednesday, these are personal testimonies. We're not talking about something that I have heard from someone else. Your personal, the personal story that you have lived, your personal experience. Why do we care so much about it? We want to make sure that 100 years from today, 200, 500, 1,000 years from today, our offsprings, the new generations that will be coming during those, those era, they can actually look back and see the lives that we lived, see where they came from, see our history, note our mistakes and successes so they can be able to utilize it to make a better world in their days. But we also want to make sure that we set the record straight. Because if you find that you're lying to the people and you have the privilege of being alive, you have an obligation to actually set the record straight. Especially today, everything that you will find in most of the places, especially those places being ruled, being governed by the government of Rwanda, they have so much flawed in what they are doing. Now, you, the international community, you watch everything in the lenses of advertisers, lobbyists. You are absolutely consuming information that has been pre-selected for you, scrutinized, making sure that it has the narrative of the government of Rwanda today. And that's why we've decided and say, hey, from now on, we actually want to give you the raw story, an edited version of what's happening, of what's been happening, because a whole lot of you are quite ignorant about what's happening. and want you to have an opportunity of have the full story so you can actually make an affirmative opinion. You can form a much more concise opinion about what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Rwanda, in East Africa, and the rest of Africa. And that's the spirit by which I stand here, or I sit here today as we share our stories. So, going back to my testimony, the last I was sharing with you, I was telling you when we first started, or when I entered the most troublesome era, or I would say time period in our lives. Remember, I said that on during my last testimony that life changed. It wasn't just for me, actually. It's for every single Rwandan and every Rwandan family. From October 1st, 1990, life has never been the same to any one of us, especially those who were in the country. And I would also submit to you that even those outside of the country, it changed, because we are so interconnected. So I'll give you a quick recap, and then I'll catch up to where I've left off. When the war started, we were in school, living life as usual. And then fast forward, we move on to, actually, the war found us in this northern town called Ruhengeri. It used to be what you would call a province, but today it's like a district. And then the small town also have name change today. Most of the places in Rwanda today do not have the same name or names that they used to have back in the days, back before 1990. Actually, before 1994, because I believe during 1994, they started making changes of region. So some of the names that I may reference to, do keep in mind that I'm actually referring to what they used to be called from 1990 all the way to 1994. Okay? Just so that you may actually be able to sort of like have an actual accurate focus of the story or the reference point of my testimony. So, going back to Ruhengeri, the war starts. A few months afterwards, it's super bad. Life is changing. Everyday lifestyle. We're not talking about just like a little slice change. Just the lifestyle as we knew it, it changes. And the first month of October comes, going November, going December, and January arrives. Now, when the war started, the way we used to live our lives had to change. People went to prison. The government literally took some people, some random people from the ethnicity Tutsi and some moderate Hutus. They were taken to prison. Why? Because they were being called enemies of the rebels, or those who were actually helping them out from the country. So now you started the division. You started observing divisions, division among Rwandan and Rwandan families. And but back in the days, given that I was just a little kid, that really never registered, except that I knew that now you could probably go down a few houses down below and you wouldn't be able to play with with your friends in the neighborhood. Before that, when all of us would be playing together. But when the war started, then some families stopped allowing their children to play with us. But we never really knew what was the reason behind, except that, some of them moved, others, they just became a bit cold. So going towards 1991, the month of January also becomes another difficult, life-changing month for most of us, especially if you were living in Ruhengeri. So what happened in Ruhengeri in the month of January? Given that the war was going on, there is a way you listen to the radio especially that we just didn't have a television news station that you could watch what was happening. So everything that we consumed back in those days, it was primarily on the radio, news-wise. We just didn't have any television that would just give you the raw images what was happening. So we would pay attention to the radio station, we would be listening to what's happening and just living your life. So back in January, to be precise, I believe it must have been the third week of January, then the rebel advanced. So they advanced to Ruhengeri. So they were coming from the Gorilla Volcano Park, coming down. And from the volcano or the Ugandan border to Rwanda, it was probably like 20-25 kilometers. So 25 kilometers is just like, well, perhaps 20 miles away. So only in 20 miles from where we lived, you could just go to Uganda. And given the proximity with that, the rebels actually attacked Ruhengeri. And all of us living our lives as we normally do. Coming Monday, we go to school. Tuesday, we go to school. And as soon as we arrive at school on Tuesday, I think it was perhaps it must have been January 22nd, I believe. Because it was Tuesday, 1991, I remember it. Then we literally start hearing machine gun. I used to go to this school called Nyamagumba. It was like a primary school. So we are at school around 10 a.m. Machine gun goes out. It goes off. That was the very first time that I was hearing a machine gun in real life with my own ears instead of being in movies. If y'all remember, I was telling you how we were watching a lot of the war movies. Commando, I think, and Rambo, and a lot of the Vietnam movies. You would enjoy seeing people shooting each other, and just a war going on. It was super exciting. I kid you not, when the war started on that Tuesday morning, when that machine gun went off, it was not funny. It was not funny at all. The noise was extremely loud. My body, you could just feel like your body was just running away from you. Shaking, just not knowing what to do with yourselves. So of course, as children, we were naturally crying, and they made an attempt to call our parents so that they can come and get us from school. Some parents did come out and they took their children, but our parents did not. So given that we were used to walking from the house to the school and school back to the house, we naturally, started walking back at home. However, on that day was so different because on our way out, we could just see so many vehicles fleeing the town because they were like, man, we're going to die, man, we're going to die, man, we're going to die. You could just feel your stomach going crazy on you, like you just wanted to use the restroom. You were shaking, your stomach just killing you. So we walk at home, and we used to have a little shortcut going to our house, and from the house to the school, that was through like a little small airport. When we went straight to the airport towards our little shortcut, we found that the soldiers were already there, looking mean with all these guns that we've never seen before. Naturally, that also creeped us out. We got scared. So instead of going through our shortcut, we decided to go right ahead and go across the proper way we know we should have been using, though it was a little bit far as compared to just going straight in the middle of the airport. So we go and we walk home the long way. It wasn't that long. It was probably like 1 kilometer or 1 point something kilometer. It was really small. It wasn't that long. But given that we just didn't want to walk that long, we naturally would just deviate. So we arrive at home, And when we got there, our parents weren't there. We just found the usual suspects at home. Like I was telling you, I do believe I say that on my last testimony. Most of the homes in Africa, or in particular in Rwanda, you had helpers. We had helpers at home, people who helped us out with cooking, with cleaning stuff, with just keeping the house running, because our parents weren't there to do that. So we had helpers at home, and that was not luxury. It is not like here. If you want a maid, if you want a chef, if you want a security guard, if you want a gardener, you'll be paying a whole lot of money here for that, because every service it's expensive here. However, back in Rwanda, you could afford to have like 4 people at home taking care of those things, and it was pretty easy to have that. So given that we arrived at home and those people were home, they of course could see that we were super upset and super scared, but they also knew what was happening, because it was already communicated to the radio that the rebel had advanced to the town of Ruhengeri. So we arrived there around 11 or 12, somewhere around there. They gave us food. Food was not just going in your stomach. It's like you lose your appetite and you want to use the restroom constantly, and you're just not at peace. The machine gun that I told you about that was shooting from 10 a.m., it continued shooting throughout the afternoon, non-stop. I think it may have given us a break around maybe 4, sometimes around 4 or 5. I don't quite remember. But it was just like a bad image. It was scary. And when I say scary, really scary and not funny at all. Normally when you go to a movie, you have a chance to actually see the thrill, the action, the adrenaline, you're excited, it's like you're directing how you want the movie to go. But I kid you not, on that day, I've prayed and I was like, God, please help us out here. Help us out here, God. And it's like you're going and you're trying to promise God so many things, most of which we really don't follow up with. But I remember that day I was like, God, please help us out. We don't want to die. So as soon as our parents arrived, we talked to them. Actually, it was just Dad. Mom wasn't there. She had also traveled work-wise, so she wasn't there. Dad arrives and he tries to calm us down, and then they say, "Oh, don't worry, everything is gonna be okay. They will just get pushed back, as it has been for these past few months." So it was it's no big deal. And we go towards the evening, as most of you recall, and for some of those of you who do not know, on Tuesdays there used to be a play on a radio station. It was like a theatrical play. It used to come around, I think it was it 8:30? I think it was around 8:30. So on Tuesday night we ate early, like we try to eat, and then at 8:30 we attempted to listen to the theatrical play on the radio, but it just wasn't the same. You could tell that something was wrong. So here we go, Tuesday night, we listened to that, and nothing was really like going in, and then we decided to go to bed early. However, even going to bed, because you could hear the gun exchange a little bit far away, it was just like that inexplicable situation where your body was just bothered from the whole entire day, throughout the morning, throughout the afternoon, and then in the evening. Guns going off from afar. And you could hear, every once in a while, some heavy gun going on. And that machine gun also resumed shooting. And so the exchange went on and 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 went on throughout the night. And then at some point it stopped. It must have been maybe 1 or 2, something like that. Then a little peace came. So we went to bed, and then just a few hours afterwards, close to 4 in the morning. I do not know what happened. All of a sudden, we just heard now guns like they were here, like inside of the studio. Now, mind you that we lived next to a what's equivalent to like a Marine base. These were like the commandos, the actual soldier, the infantry, that's how we call them, like the Marines. So our house was literally next to the Marine base in Rwanda, or the commando base. The only thing that separated us, it was just a road, a little teeny road. So now the rebel had advanced to the town, to Ruhengeri town, and they had actually circled the base. And given that they strategically were shooting at them, our house, given that it was right next to it and it was the only nice home that was there, they assumed that our house was also owned by like one of those officers from the camp, from the military base. So 4 in the morning, or close to 4 in the morning, literally was around 4. All of a sudden, we hear like, and when I say that went off, that's little sleep we were having. Completely, it's like we woke up straight from the bed, completely disoriented, not knowing what to do, and then stupid me, I'll go straight to the window. Minding you, these guns, the bullets are coming in the house through the windows. So as scared as I was like, what the hell is going on? As a kid, I was screaming, super upset in the window, and the bullets are coming in. And in my head, I had no idea that I could have been harmed. So here I am in the window, I'm trying to look like, damn, what's going on? So the bullet comes in, and one of the bullets goes right through my shirt, literally. And then I hear something burn, something just burned me. And then my dad comes and grabs me and slams me down. Because as we were screaming, their room was like, the master bedroom was like right next to ours. So we scrambled. We were living in the same, we slept in the same room, my siblings. So going in the window and try to see what was happening, and the bullet coming in, dad comes in and slams me down. And then of course he yells at us, say, come down, but we just couldn't come down. We were screaming. It was like someone had like a Karchenkov M16 non-stop in the house. That's how much noise you could hear right then and there. We screamed, and then dad only had to speak, I think it was like 3 times only. It was around 8:45. Thanks for reminding me, Athena. That's when Ikinamicho was. Thank you. I appreciate that. So the theatrical play 8:45. One of my colleagues, or another one of comrade, gives me the correctness on that one. So going back to around 4 in the morning, the guns are going off. We have no idea what's going on. We are scared as I can tell you. Now remember the upset stomach, the earlier one. This time around, I kid you not, diarrhea. It's like you couldn't even stand up. We were shaking, literally, stomach killing you, and we just scrambled, and afterwards we stopped. They exchanged so much. You could see just like a little star coming in the house, through the window. So dad, I don't know whether it was instinct or what. So he grabs one of the mattress on the bed, and he tried to push it against the window. I thought that maybe he was trying to stop the bullet. But at least when the bullet would come through the mattress, we no longer could see many little like stars, because you could see like a bullet with fire on it. So there were 2 different bullets that they were shooting. Some bullets didn't have fires, and others you could see when it would come through, you could see like a little star coming in quick. So we ducked, we went down, and we'd stay on the floor. One of the best thing that I so appreciate about African homes. We build in bricks, guys. It's either brick or, guys, if you guys know what you call rukarakara, let me know what you call that in English, and then I'll tell these people. So it's either bricks or this local made like it's like compressed soil. We call it rukarakara, but the majority of the modern homes, they were built out of bricks. Why do I say that? Bullets cannot go through bricks. For a bullet to go through a brick wall, it has to be a really incredible, powerful bullet, like maybe those heavy artillery guns or things like that. So given that our homes was built by bricks, so most of the bullets were actually being stopped. But just to be cautioned, our father was like, I need all of you to go in the corridor. So our house was built in a such way that we had one hallway. It was like a corridor, whereas both walls didn't have any windows, only the doors that would just lead you to, to the rooms, but the rest of it was just two walls standing. Now imagine now, for a bullet to come through the window in your room and go through the corridor, it was almost not going to happen. So all of us would duck there. Our dad, my siblings, and the workers at home, all of us would duck down there. And I'm telling you, every 30 seconds, someone wanted to use the restroom. Diarrhea was like a thing. Everybody, all of us, we just started having diarrhea. And I guess it was because of fear, from what I was told afterwards. So we literally listened and listened and listened and listened and listened and listened to guns for like at least 2.5 hours, non-stop. Non-stop. Bullets, you could just hear like when a bullet will come in through the walls, you could just hear like someone like knocking continuously. And then after 2.5 hours, close to 7 in the morning, I think it was, between 2.5 hours or 3, because I remember when they stopped, it was close to 7 in the morning. So around 7, the bullet stopped, the fight stopped, and I kid you not, I have never heard such a silence as a silent right after gunshots or gun exchange. We're talking about there is not one single bird that makes noise. No dogs will make any noise. Kids do not make any noise. Grown-ups do not make any noise. You could literally drop a needle and you can actually listen to, as the needle goes down and falls down, you could feel it and you could listen to it. That's how quiet everything was in that morning. So as soon as the war stops, or the fire exchange stops, then we were like, you are completely numb. We were like, man, are we going to die next? So Dad goes in the window, he peeps on the front windows trying to see whether, there was anybody there, and nothing was moving. Not one single person, no dog, no animal, no birds, no nothing. It was just like a dead zone. He goes at the back on one of the rooms at the back. He peeps out there, nothing was moving. Okay, and then afterwards, all of a sudden, some of our friends, one of those families, they decide to call. And the phone was ringing so hard, so loud. Well, it wasn't loud, simply because everything was so quiet. Now the phone it rang like it was like a megaphone ringing. So he runs quickly and picks up the phone, and it was some friends of ours in Kigali, in the capital, trying to find out what was happening. Because, after all, they found out that, the town has been overrun, and the rebels were in Ruhengeri. And so our dad tries to tell them, hey, yes, the war is going on, we need some help. So he was literally just telling them what was happening. So they were like, so can you see the rebels and all of that? He's like, no, but the gunfights just stopped only a few minutes ago. And then afterwards, they exchange a few other things, and then he hangs up. And after he hang up, he tells one of our chef to go and try to fix breakfast. Now remember, everybody was scared. This guy, he grabs a pot of water, and he takes it to the stove, and he was like, he was shaking. I remember it. And as he was shaking, you could just see, like, man, it was like he just didn't know what to do. And all of us, you could just feel the fear in you, but also the numbness. It's like you just couldn't feel yourself the way you would normally feel yourself. So he makes some tea for us, and he gives us some tea. We try to drink some tea in the morning, but it was like forcing something to go through you. And afterwards, right after we finished, actually we never finished. We almost finished drinking tea. All of a sudden, we started listening to people yelling outside. But this time they were not yelling in Kenya and Rwanda. They were yelling in another language. I think it was either Ruganda or English. As soon as we heard the noise, Dad was like, go back in the corridor. So we ran right straight back to the corridor and we ducked. And then Dad goes in the window, and all of a sudden he sees soldiers. He saw soldiers coming, right next to our fence, going towards the barracks, the Marine base. And Dad was like, get up, we have to go. They get ready to come and kill us. Why would he say that? Because they used to kill people. They used to kill just the, regular citizens, civilians. So Dad was like, most likely they will come and kill us since they were shooting at the house anyway. So he was like, okay, get ready. We got to get out of this house. And then we refused. And Dad was like, you know what? I'm not asking you. All of us, we got to go. So of course, he speaks once. The second is a charm. And all of us, we decide, we stood up and we got ready. But now the problem was, how were we going to get out of the house? We couldn't go through the front. The front was right in front of the barracks. If we would have gone there, they would have seen us. At the back, it was more ideal. However, there was no gate at the back. We had the banana trees behind and some corn. It was a pretty decent camouflage area for you to go in. But because we had a long fence, in order for us to actually get out of the house, we had to climb the fence and fall back out. Now, we just didn't have a regular fence. We had like a brick fence also. On the side of on the back side, we had a brick fence. So that was like, all of you gotta get ready, you gotta prepare so you can go. And so we hesitantly accepted. We couldn't refuse because he was like the commander-in-chief in the house. Whatever he said, it went. Anything that we said, we would do. No question asked, just like you tell a soldier to do A, B, C, D, and a soldier does A, B, C, D. So he gets all of us together. He put us together. He tells us to grab just a few things. I remember we took some sugar. We took a sugar bag, and then we took like a small bag of clothes. So, and some water. I think it was some sugar, some water. There might have been something else to drink. I don't remember. And then it was like, make sure that it's as light as possible. So one of the chefs, he gave him like a small suitcase of our clothes. So we leave. Now, for us to get out of the house, given that the soldiers were making noise going down to the barracks, it's like you had to duck from the house to the quarters, to the living quarters of the helpers, and behind the living quarters, that was the fence. You had to go and jump over. Now, since we couldn't climb, first we tried to get out of the house to the quarters, to the living quarters of the workers. It was a kid by kid. So you have to sort of like wait, and you would just run quietly. Wait and run quietly. And then as soon all of us evacuated the main house, we went next to the living quarters of the workers. Now the problem had to be to get out, to climb the fence, because we just couldn't climb. We were too small. So I don't know how Dad did it. He will grab a kid, and literally, when I say literally, he will just throw you over. That's how we literally got out of the house. I believe we were light enough that he could just grab you and throw you. And God helps you if you landed on something that would harm you. But at that point, we were not feeling anything. So Dad grabs the first one of my siblings. He throws him over. He grabs me. He throws me over. Grabs another one of my siblings. Throws her over, and so on. 4 of us. He literally threw us over the fence. We didn't climb. We were thrown over. Now think about a kid. Your own father is throwing you over the fence. Why? Because you got to get out of the house. The rest of the grown-ups, they attempted to climb the fence. But because it was long, they also struggled going up. They were like literally helping each other out, helping each other out to get out of the fence. And I remember every time they were trying to climb, they were making noise. And so they were like, stop making noise. Dad will be, he will sort of like yell. Not too loud, but enough for us to just be quiet. And as soon as we were thrown over, we fell on the farm basically with some corn and some banana trees. And Dad was like, stay down. None of you get up. You need to stay where you are. Wait for me. So we sort of like were crying quietly. You could see tears, but we were not making noise. And we have no idea how to behave basically, except I remember we were just fearful. I was personally fearful, and I was numb. So a few minutes afterwards, we see the maid. She climbs over. Our chef climbs over, and the security guard climbs over. All of them, they come in the banana trees and in the cornfield. And then Dad also climbs over, and he finds us out. And then afterwards, he was like, stay down. Because as they were doing that, now all of a sudden, the rebel start feeling things in the corns. So they were like looking like this, and we were like, oh my God, now they get ready to kill us. Now, minding you also, we were told that these were like cockroach looking like human beings. Because on the radio station, we were just told that these people were like cockroaches. So imagine, I never thought that it was just like, like you can just demeanor someone or try to make, it was just a way to dehumanize them. But us as children, we took it literally. Because I was like, man, I never want to be called by a cockroach. Now, when we first saw them eye to eye, these guys, they were no cockroaches, but they looked like human beings with bullet machetes. With bullet, what do you call the bullet chains? That's right. So, and they were marching online together. So when they glanced in the cornfield right where we were like, oh my God, it's over. They get ready to shoot us from there. Luckily, they just didn't see anything. Not one single one of us made any noise. So from there, as soon as they passed by, so Dad was like, well, we need to just go towards Uganda. So his logic was, if the rebels were advancing down to Ruhengeri city, if we would go the opposite direction, chances are we were not going to find as many. So we naturally followed. We didn't question him. So we literally went. Just a few 100 feet afterwards, all of a sudden we saw some other people ducking in the cornfields. And these were not just regular people. These were prisoners. How did we know prisoners? Prisoners in Rwanda, they used to be bald. They would actually shave their hair off completely, and they would be wearing pink uniform. and we saw them ducking, literally waiting on us. And they also looked really, they looked scared. When they saw us, they also were scared. So as soon as we saw them, we were like, oh my God, now either these people will kill us, or they might, or they may call the rebels so they can come in and harm us. But likely, they also thought the same thing. So all of us, we mind each other's business. We just kept on moving, going up by foot, minding you. We kept on going. We walked in the, in the cornfields and the banana trees for at least 1 hour, going towards the volcanoes. We arrived to this little teeny house that was owned by this old lady. So the old lady had refused to go away because she just was weak. She couldn't go anywhere. And then when she found us, because we were so hungry, after 1 hour we were like, Dad, we're dying. We can't go anywhere. That sugar we were eating, I think it was almost over. And we were just so hungry. And then we were like, we need to take a break. Dad was like, you gotta go. So the old lady was, she overhears us arguing with Dad that we wanted to, to take a break. So she walks out and she say, oh, my children, come. You guys can rest here. So as soon as Dad sees her, he greets her. And then she's like, oh, so where are you guys coming from? And we explained to her that we had just came from a few, a few kilometers down. And then she said, okay, can I give you something? Dad was like, yes. But then, for us, we're like, okay. So she goes in the house. She brings in, what do you call it? Igikoma. It's like this millet. Is it like millet? It's like porridge. But this is not any porridge. It's like this really yucky dark porridge. We were considered like spoiled children. As soon as she brings out the dark porridge, she gives it to us, and this thing was, I kid you not, it was yucky as I don't know what. However, it was like really yummy to them. But for us, we're not used to eating or drinking things like that. So she really very generously and happily gives, she gives us, igikoma, and then we drink it and we spit it. And Dad literally whooped us up. And then he's like, no, how can you be so disrespectful? So we're like, there's no sugar in it. So we were complaining that there was no sugar in it. And it tastes yucky. And children, we just didn't have any filters. So we literally say it the way it was feeling in our mouth. And so Grandma didn't mind. She just was like, okay, just drink so you can pick up some strength. And so Dad he ordered us to drink because we have refused. And so we, of course, we naggingly drank it. Really, actually angry, I think, because we're like, how can they give us this? So little did we know that was actually the only meal for the day we were going to be drinking. So minding you, from our house to her house, it took us a while. It literally took us a while to get there. I think probably we walked for like 3 hours or something like that. And by the time we arrived there, our feet were just hurting because we have never walked that long before in my whole entire life. We have never walked that long in my whole entire life. So when we arrived, we sat down for a little bit of time, and then and she tells us that my children have left. I'm the one who remains. And then she goes like, well, you cannot stay here that long because they have been killing people. So as soon as she said that, my stomach again, I felt like I just wanted to just go to the restroom again. You could just feel like your stomach dropping all over again. So I was like, oh my God, not again. We get ready to run again. But this time around, because it was just cornfields. It was bushes. So we're like, man, I was just thinking of living a nice house, living like a good life, and we're right in the middle of nowhere, in the bushes. and we're fleeing. So as soon as she said that, she was like, well, just get some rest and then keep on moving. Otherwise, you guys risk to be killed also. So it took us like 1 hour. We gathered some strength, and then afterwards we started walking. So and this time around from Kinigi, we had arrived to this little area called Kinigi. That's where the old lady lived. So Dad was like, well, let's try to see if we could go to another province called Gisenyi. So however, because we've never done it before, so he was just like, let's try to go that direction. He was like pointing to, towards the west. And then he said, there's a good chance that they may not have been, that the rebels are not there yet, that we might be safe. So guys, I kid you not, we walk, and then every time we would see other people walking, fleeing, we would run away from them because we didn't know whether they were rebels or not. But eventually, more and more refugees, internally displaced people started showing. So they were like, well, they were killing us, they were just yelling, telling stories. And then all of a sudden, Dad is like, this is not a good situation. If we are so many together, more likely they will come and kill us all, or they might just hear us talk. So Dad was like, you know what, let's take our own route, let's keep on moving. So now, given that the area that we were in, it had so many people, Dad was like, let's swear off just a little bit so that we can actually stay away from the crowd. Little did we know, when we did that, we got to a point where we followed this river. What was the river's called? The river. There was a river that came from Kinigi back to Musanze. For those of you who are familiar with Musanze, right next to the Musanze school, there was a river that will go through there. So Dad was like, well, if we go through the river, there is a good chance that they're not going to see us, and we may make it to Gisenyi faster. So we go there, we walk in the river, and luckily the water was so low that it was easier to walk in. So we walk, and little did we know, we find ourselves back in Ruhengeri city, in Musanze. So we thought we were literally arriving close to Gisenyi. But instead of going towards Gisenyi, we went back to the city. And all of a sudden, Dad is like, wait, this is so familiar. Because he was familiar with the area. And then you could see his face just changing. He's like, oh my God, all this time, we went in circles. So needless to say, from Musanze to our house, it was just like, 30 minutes walk. So Dad, you could see his face was like, oh my God, we are back in the city. The rebels are going to kill us. So from there, he's like, okay, if we now go straight towards, Ruhengeri city, to the main road that goes to Gisenyi, there is a good chance that we are going to actually survive. So we go there, except when we went there, all of a sudden we saw trucks, soldier truck and vehicle coming in. So we were like, oh wait, this may actually be rebels, rebel trucks. So let's not go there. So immediately Dad tells us, hey, listen, okay, instead of going through the city, through the main road, let's start going towards, so there was like a main paved road. We will go around the road in the bushes. We will follow the street, but not on the street, through the bushes. So we went there, and as soon as we went there, maybe a half kilometers away, all of a sudden we see a truck coming. So Dad looks at it, and it seemed like it was, it was like a regular truck. So he goes in and he yells for a lift. And they ignore us. Once they ignored us, we kept on going. We kept on walking again. A little bit of afterwards, we meet another family, friends of ours, also walking. And this family, they were like good friends. They used to work in the nearby government established area. And so they were like, so you guys are fleeing also? And we're like, yes, we're fleeing. And they were like, so us too. And guys, I kid you not, the parents, normally most of the people work for the government. So our parents, they were worrying worse than a peasant, because they were told, like, if you dress like a peasant, there's a good chance that you will survive, because they won't care. You would just look like you are a nobody, and they are going to let you go. So our father, he was dressing like a peasant, and all of a sudden we see the other person, the father of those other friends of ours, also dressing like a peasant. You would not know who he was, except that you've seen him before. And so they also they spoke, and they were like, so how'd you guys get here? They were like, we walked just like you guys, and so on. And as soon as they exchanged, all of a sudden they were like, so where we headed towards Gisenyi, and we say, okay, us too, we headed towards Gisenyi. So they were like, oh, so why don't we share let's share the traveling, let's travel together. There's a good chance that we may actually make it together. And so we sort of like followed, and we walked with them. Briefly after we walked, I think we may have walked for maybe 1 little kilometer. All of a sudden we see another truck, and this time around, the other man, he went and stopped the truck, and the truck stopped. And as soon as the truck stops, he says, hey, we are trying to go to Gisenyi. Would you guys give us a lift? And it so happened that the driver in that truck recognized the man, because he was quite a very known man in the area. One second. They're telling me that some of you are having some issues following. If you guys can help him out, so you can fix the situation there. So as soon as he requested the ride, the lift. So these guys were like, okay, but we have to go right now. So they were actually trying to go to Ruhengeri, and he was like, nah, if you go to Ruhengeri, you're not going to make it, because the RPF soldiers are there, the rebels, that is. And so the man was like, oh, okay, so we're not gonna go to Ruhengeri. However, we need to figure out a way to keep him moving, So they turned the vehicle around, and as soon as they turned the vehicle around, they put us in the trunk. This was like a construction vehicle, like those trucks, those big trucks that will carry bricks, sand, and all of that. So you have a bunch of us at the back. You have at least our family plus the other family that we have met on the road, and I think there was a few extra people who decided to just join us right there. And as soon as they came through, they put us in the trunk, and once we got in the truck so they were like, okay, so make sure that you hold tight, because normally this truck, it does not carry people. So, you're on your own basically. As long as you hold on tight, you should be okay. And so we hold tight to the truck, and then afterwards the truck started driving. And as soon as the trucks started driving, I think we may have driven for maybe a mile or so. And once we arrived a mile or so, all of a sudden we saw some prisoners coming out of the bushes, and they were also asking for a lift. And guys, I kid you not, that moment, that was the first ugliest and the most worst day in my whole life, and the experience that we actually experienced on that day during that hour. 2 prisoners come out of the bushes, and as they come out of the bush, they basically asked for a ride, and the rebels. No, it wasn't the rebel. It was actually the government. There was a soldier in the front of the truck, plus the driver. So the soldier get out of the truck, and as soon as he got out of the truck, he talked to the prisoner, and And with the prisoner, I don't know what they exchanged. And then all of a sudden, the man grabs the gun and then, pa! He kills, he shots, he shot the prisoner. I scrambled. I was holding to these bars on the truck. And as soon as he shot him, I froze and I was screaming. And the man looked at us like, it was nothing. And so I couldn't let go of my hands because it's like I froze. So when he shot that person, and then he went off, shot him again. 2 shots. The first shot, when he shot him, the man was like, and then he fell back like a tree. And as soon as he landed down, he took the gun and shot him again. And you could see the man died. I remember like I just saw it, like a minute ago. So my hands, I'm stuck like this, and I'm screaming. Dad comes and holds my, he holds my mouth, and he pulls us up. And of course, it wasn't just me screaming. Everybody in the trunk was screaming. The children were screaming. And everybody was like, calm down, calm down, calm down. So we sit down and we calm down. But I was out of it. It's like I had gone crazy. Like now, we were already afraid and scared that we were like, man, these guys are going to kill us too. They just killed someone out of blue because of a ride. So now apparently later on when we arrived to like the nearby town towards Gisenyi, but we had not arrived to Gisenyi yet. It was nearby right after Musanze. There was like the first town you could get there. The gentleman arrives, the driver who was driving the truck there. So he stops there and then he explained, well, earlier there was this Ibyitso. So Ikitso, it meant the sympathizers or those who were helping the rebels. And we had to kill him. So when he was killing one of them, the other prisoner ran back to the bushes. So he only killed one. So, and we were like, man, these guys are going to kill us also. Because I was like, man, we literally riding with a murderer. It also so happened that that person who was killed, we recognized him also. It was another friend of our family who got killed. He was one of the wealthiest businessmen there who got killed. And his name was Bizimana. He was a really wealthy man who was a decent man. He had like a shop that used to manufacture chair in the whole town and probably in the region too. So he was literally executed there in front of us. Why? I don't know, except that they say he was like a sympathizer when we arrived to the first town. And so from there, they were like, you are never to speak of this. So they was basically telling us something we call in Kirana gasopo, do not say anything. You say something, I'll come for you and I'll kid you and I'll kill you. And I remember we did not say anything about that, except it's like we were speaking code of what was happening or what had happened. All of us, that family and our families, we sort of like, you could see us kid, like your eyes, they just pop out and you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're just like quiet as a mouse, and you waiting. It was terrible to observe as much experience. I know it was horrible. It was really terrible. So as soon as we arrived to, I don't know whether it was Commune. Commune is like one of these little local government office. I don't know whether it was Muri. I don't remember. I will have to actually check it on Google, because I tried to retrace our way as we were fleeing town, trying to sort of like understand exactly where we were. But when we arrived, so everybody was like, well, let's figure out a way to keep on moving to Gisenyi, since them they had decided that they wanted to go back to Ruhengeri to see if they could, find other people. So we from there, they of course there was a barrier with some soldiers, and they check us out. They make sure that we were not RPF, but luckily, because again we had shared a ride with that very known person, so they were like, oh, we know this guy, he's one of us. And when we arrived there, so we were like, wow, so how do we get to Gisenyi? Especially that nobody really knows us in Gisenyi. And plus, it was getting a little rough. So Dad asked the man, like, hey, where you guys going? He explains we headed to Gisenyi, towards Gisenyi. We're thinking from there we might have a good chance of just going to Goma if we had to keep moving. And so you say, so that was so how about we share the road together again? So all of us, we shared the route again, and luckily again, just not so far away, we found a pickup truck. They gave us a ride, and they just pushed us like maybe 5-10 kilometers further up, and then we found this empty house that didn't have people. I think it was like a tourist house. So, and again, given the stature of the man, when he arrived there, they recognized him. So they were like, oh, hello, with all these, with all these prestiges and all of that. So they were like, well, we will definitely give you a place to stay while you situate yourself, and then you figure out something. So we stayed there for a night, 2 nights, and then on the third night, we overheard on the radio that the rebel were actually pushed back out, to the volcanoes. And they were calling out people to go back in their homes and all of that. So I remember when they made an announcement, our father and the other men, the father of the other family, they went back to Ruhengeri, trying to basically check to see how things were. And in my head I was like, hell no, we're not going back there. They might come back again and kill us. So they went and they left us and the mother and everybody else to that place. 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. I think like on the 5th day, then they called us and they were like, oh, come back home. Everything is okay. We will just have to rebuild life all over again. And when we arrived, so we they sent us a truck, and they gave us a ride back home. And as soon as we arrived at home, we saw the house for the first time. And I'm telling you, the whole house had been redecorated. Remember, they were shooting at the house through the windows and throughout the house walls on it. You could see like hundreds of bullets that went through the house. Hundreds of bullets. You could just see like the house was redecorated. It was like purposely like these little dots that you could see towards the house, especially the front and the back. The front and the back, they have many bullets that came through, and it looked almost surreal. Like to see just the way the house was before and the way it was afterwards. And the funny thing, that was like, well, we have to stay here because, we don't have another place to live. So us were like, man, they're going to come out, they will come back and they will kill us again. And this time around, remember we live right next to the military barracks. So we saw so many soldiers now that like we've never seen before. So many soldiers that like we've never seen before. And that time around, we could also see so many trenches. Actually, the trenches, there were trenches before, but they were multiplied. They were added. So the trenches, that's where the soldiers will fight. If they were combat to combat, they would like stay in this hole, and then the guns were up and everything. I kid you not, the scenery of what it looked like back in the days. It's stuck in my head. I cannot even shake it. And I remember when they saw us. Of course, they could see that we live right there. Some of those guys were mean. Others were like really nice and comedian. They would just come over sometimes and enthuse us and let us know, hey, don't worry, everything is gonna be okay. because we just looked like we just were super paranoid all the time. And I remember that you could just feel guns every day. Now we started hearing guns afar, not in town, like it had taken place a few days before, but we could hear guns all the time. And we saw so many bullets also. We could find live bullets in the cornfields, and you could see soldiers actually doing like inspections. They were going through homes, making sure that there weren't any guns or bodies. And I remember they were like, so we want you children to never play with bullets, to never play with grenades. For the first time, they came and they were like, if you see this thing that looks like this, call us. So they were basically instructing us, they were teaching us what we had to look for so that they can actually come and disarm him. They were looking for mines, like those mines that usually just boom, kaboom, boom you, grenades, bullets, and guns. So they show us what it all looked like. So they were like, if you see a bullet that looks like this, call us. If you see a gun, call us. If you see a grenade, call us. And be sure not to pull the ring. There's like a little pin. If you pull it out of that grenade, the thing goes kaboom. So we got all that instructions, and we were like, man, this is so cool. But again, it started feeling again like in the movies, because now you can imagine a kid touching a gun for the first time, touching a bullet for the first time, touching a grenade for the first time. And naturally, because, they sort of liked us, they started showing us more and more. You're seeing a bayonet, a military bayonet. So they just liked us because we're nice. So they started coming in home, and they will come in the cornfields and will check and run the perimeter check and all of that. So naturally, it was good for us, because then we were like, okay, so at least if something goes wrong, these guys may actually share with us, they might tell us what's happening, and good chance we might be able to leave before, the house burns down again, like it had been before. And I remember from there, life changed also. Remember, we had just been scarred with someone getting killed in front of us, literally like 3-4 meters away, someone being killed in front of you. And then next to it, you get introduced to war weapons, the weaponries being used in warfare. So our lives literally took a new turn. And from there, we didn't go to school for like a week or even a week and a half, because most families didn't come back, and they were chopping off bushes, they were clearing off the whole entire area. And we were forced, or we were told that all of us, we had to help the whole entire neighborhood cutting bushes so that, the rebels wouldn't hide in the bushes. So we done that for like a week. Cleaning and making sure that there weren't any grenades, any improvised devices, and things like that. So it almost felt like a vacation, except that it was just like, a not so nice vacation, but eventually we started getting used to it. And so we lived there again a couple times. Greetings to you too, Girwa. So we lived there a few more months afterwards, with, and I remember there were a few instances where we also were forced to flee again when the rebels almost came back in town. And then in 1992, another really heavy fight broke. And at that point, we had to flee again. But this time around, when we fled towards Nyakinama. So the idea this time was to flee going towards Gitarama. So that's another one of it. It was like towards southern Rwanda. We couldn't go towards Kigali because they were like, there's a chance that you might be intercepted. So we couldn't go towards Gisenyi either, because they said that they were coming towards Gisenyi, that they were literally coming towards Ruhengeri. So we went towards Nyakinama, I remember. So we went by foot again. Surprisingly, we could not get it right, because if you had a ride, oftentimes you couldn't go anywhere with it. There weren't drivers doing it, and you were a target. So you were a target if you were riding like a car that looked a bit decent. So I remember we were fleeing by foot again. And this time around, we fled on the streets along with so many other people. They're telling me that we're running out of time, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut short my testimonies from here. But in the midst of all of this, I've never told this story before. You guys are the first to be hearing of this, in English anyway. I've written a book about it, but I've never narrated the whole story like I'm doing it right now. And I want to encourage all of you young people of the same age or even older. I want to encourage you to find it within yourselves, to write your own history, to speak your own history, to give your testimony of what you have lived. Because most of the history that we have today has completely excluded you out of it, excluded your ordeals, what you have gone through, all of that. So it's important that we rewrite our history as accurate as you can recall, and make sure that this part of our history never dies. So this is the spirit by which we share with you or the testimonies in our history. We also want to encourage, I want to encourage all of you guys to also write books. Just make sure that you do not depart this earth with that information. It's going to be used down the line many years ahead of us. But it is also going to help some of the families that have completely been killed to have some sort of reference point. Being able to say, hey, I knew someone here, I knew somebody there. So I want to promise you guys that we are going to forever tell our story until the last person alive can share their testimony, write their own history. We want to make sure that we recollect all of our history together, all these testimonies together, especially those of you who have gone through the same ordeals, so we can testify. Because some of the deaths that have taken place from 1990 to 1994 were never reported. These are the deaths literally perpetrated by the RPF. The RPF, it's the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the rebels, who are the government today. But because not one single international agency has ever investigated them, up to this day, those deaths have never been, they were never judged. They were never taken to court. They were never, many families have never got justice. They've never received justice. And we want to make sure that at some point in life, we can actually seek out justice to each and every one of the families that have lost their loved ones from October 1st up until today. And with that in mind, I also want to thank HMG Network and affiliates for making this broadcast a reality, because we know it is not every station that takes the time to share our stories. And we want to say thank you so much for making that happen, and also wanting to give the opportunity to all of you out there to take it upon yourself to just be there, say, provide information, especially give the testimonies, those dark testimonies that nobody knows, because it is going to save so many lives. It is going to be utilized in courts for justices. All right. So with that, again, I am so grateful. Please leave us some feedbacks on our website, afridominion.com or www.afridominion.com, or leave us some feedbacks using our email, info@afridominion.com. And let's keep on telling our stories. Let's keep on doing our testimonies. Until next time, we'll see you Wednesday again during our testimony. If you have a testimony that you want to give out, by all means do so. Otherwise, tomorrow we get to meet again, and Friday. And we are so grateful for this opportunity to hang out with you guys, to be with you guys. And we are super grateful. And with that in mind, I am Freeman Singirankabo. May God be with you. You guys have a beautiful day, and goodbye for now.